Hello everyone. Today's book makes it official. There's no way at the end of the year I can do a top 10 best horror book list. This thing is going to be top 12, top 15, maybe even top 20. This has been a phenomenal year for horror. And when I read this book, I knew automatically, as soon as I finished, I was like, this has to go on that list. That's how good this book is. It is one of the best horror books of the year that I've read, and I can't wait to tell you about it. But first, as always, I want to remind you that I also have books for sale. And if you want to read any of the books, they are there on the screen. You can do so at the link in the description. And if you want to buy me a coffee on Ko-Fi.com, that link is also down below. All right, let's get started. So the book I'm going to talk about today is called The Promise of Plague Wolves by Coy Hall. I saw it on NetGalley. They accepted my request for an advanced review copy. This book is coming out on September 12th, so just a very, very short while away. And as always, I will leave a pre-order link in the description so you can get your copy. As I said, in my opinion, this is one of the best horror books of the year, and I don't want you to miss it. What makes it so good? I mean, there are several aspects to this book that just really blew me away. One is that it is a perfect blend of historical fiction, supernatural horror, and folk horror. It has all of these elements, but each of these elements is not separate from one another, if you know what I mean. They're all weaved and blended together in the narrative, and it's a beautiful thing. But this book is set in the late 1600s, I want to say 1680s, or somewhere in that area. It's set in Austria, and at this time in history, the plague is, running its course, running amok. And it reaches a small village in Austria, and it is a very bleak, depressing place to be, with all these dead bodies everywhere in this town, and a lot of people are still being affected by the plagues and the sores and the oozing boils and all that nasty stuff. And this author really gives us a good insight of what it's like to suffer with the plague and with these symptoms that it can bring. And it really will make you feel a little icky inside, which is good for a horror book. And this place kind of has a sense of hopelessness because of the plague and things that are going on. But the main focus isn't really about the plague here, because there's something else going on, something evil, something much more malevolent than even the plague, an evil that exists underneath in the ground. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, because you'll have to read about it for yourself. I'm trying to stay as spoiler free as possible. But there's a man named Doran Toth who gets sent to this town by his religious order to investigate these paranormal occult claims. His religious order deals in things of the occultish nature, sending men like him out to investigate. And with Doran Toth is his ever faithful companion, Vinegar Tom. And Vinegar Tom is a greyhound dog. These are two great characters. Yes, even the dog is a great character. I really love the character of Doran Toth. I thought he was fantastic. He's of Romani descent, so a lot of people see him as a dirty gypsy. There's this xenophobic vibe people give him because of his heritage. But he's still a professional, and his job is to go investigate these things. And the relationship between him and his dog is one of the great things about this book, because Vinegar Tom, you don't get the sense that the dog is owned by Doran. It seems to be more of a companionship, more of a friendship, like you would expect between two humans, except one of them is a dog. And the dog does kind of have its own mind and does its own thing at times. And Doran actually, you know, has conversations with the dog because he prefers the company of dogs to the company of humans. And the dog is going to play a key role as this book progresses, because when you see a dog that's attacking something and is in mortal danger, trying to protect his friend, his owner for all intents and purposes, it makes your blood pressure go up because you don't want to see anything happen to this dog. And some of the scenes in there where it looks like the dog just might not make it really affected me, because I'm like, no, don't kill the dog. Don't kill Vinegar Tom. We love him. But Doran Toth himself is a fantastic character. And if you look at the bottom of the cover there, you'll see that this is called A Doran Toth Story, and which makes me believe, and talking to the author on Twitter, or are we calling it X now? I'm not real sure. Whatever you want to call it over there. Yes, this is going to be a continuation. He's working hard on further installments. So what a fantastic thing to hear, because I cannot get enough of this character. He could write about that character for the next 4 or 5 books, and I would be on board to read about them every single time. But once he gets to this town, he's going to find all the things in a small little village that you would expect. A lot of secrets going on, a lot of infighting between certain families in the village, especially during the time of the plague, and then the supernatural stuff happening with it. It's easy for people to just start blaming their neighbor for the events that are happening, even though they might be unfounded. You'll find that, and you're going to find a lot of the things in this book you can actually apply to modern day society. From the nemesis of Doran Toth, another man who is from a different order and thinks differently than Doran, who is more belligerent, more boisterous, very much more vocal. He has a certain commanding presence that makes people follow him, even though he's actually a very bigoted man. He's actually a non-caring person. He doesn't really care about anything, and he often belittles and threatens and discriminates against Doran because of his heritage. And yet people seem to be following him because he's a certain charismatic leader, and they don't really think about why they're doing it. It's just that he has a very commanding presence. And you can see parallels between this person and certain public figures in today's society. And if you put this in the modern world, and instead of the plague, you wrote a book about the pandemic and the virus, that would work equally as well. There are parallels, even though it's set in 1600s, to what's going on in today's world, and that did not escape me. But yeah, Doran has his nemesis there, trying to foil his plans. He meets some very nice people in this village, helpful people, but they're all still a little distrusting of him because he is of a certain heritage that they don't exactly accept willingly into their town. But then we're going to meet some people who are just outright hostile and do not want to help. And as events build up and things start happening, that is also going to have a role in what eventually happens. But this book was so wonderfully written. The way he wrote about these times, the characters and the way they spoke to each other, really put you in that world. That's why I think it's one of the best books I've read, because I was in that place with them along the way. I felt like I was just being transported there by the words that this author has written and the manner in which he wrote them. It really made it seem like like magic almost, like I was just, boom, I was right there. And it was very jarring when I had to stop reading and come back to, the real world because I just wanted to stay in there with them, even through all the fear, even through all the terror, even through all the sickness and disease and depression and the bleakness of this little village. I still wanted to be there right next to Doran, right next to Vinegar Tom, because I enjoyed reading about them so much. And let me tell you, this book is frightening. This book is terrifying. I'm not going to tell you why or what the supernatural things are, but trust me, you'll probably never read anything like this in a horror book before, because it has certain elements you might be familiar with, but he does something special with them, and you'll just have to read about that to find out. But there are enough scares in this book, and some of the scenes in here are pretty grim, pretty bloody, because you're dealing with a disease that ravages the human flesh. You're dealing with creatures that want to do the same and ravage the human flesh. And right from the very first chapter, we're going to get a little glimpse into what these things can do, and you're hooked from there all the way through to the end. So yes, all of these things together make this one of the best horror books of the year, in my opinion. I can't recommend it enough. It's coming out on September 12th. There's a link below where you can pre-order your copy, and I give it my highest recommendation. Definitely don't miss out on this one. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.